It's been a long, long time since the Daleks were remotely threatening in Doctor Who, at least in my opinion. To me, the last time the Daleks felt like they were a threat was in the Series 4 finale, or perhaps even Series 5's Victory of the Daleks. What I say in this video is simply my opinion, and it's kind of fair to say I'm not exactly Doctor Who's target audience anymore, and consequently what I say is simply how I'd make the show appeal more to me, which is not necessarily what the BBC wants or is trying to do, and that's completely fair. Personally, there is one person I blame for what I perceive as a reduction in the Daleks' gravitas in Doctor Who, and that is Steven Moffat, or Moffat, or however it's said. I say Moffat. Perhaps it is unfair for me to do this, or maybe it's completely fair. I'm not exactly sure how the production of Doctor Who works, or who's in charge of changes and all that. But it all started when Moffat became the showrunner, head writer and executive producer of the show. So I think it's a pretty fair assumption for me to consider that a lot of the problems Doctor Who faced during this period, in my opinion, to be caused at least in part due to his ideas. For example, Moffat said something like that he didn't want to use the Daleks that much because his predecessor Russell T Davies had used them in every series he'd done, and Moffat felt if they kept being used like this, they would eventually not seem scary anymore. And that's a brilliant point. I agreed with him when he said this. The other day I think I even saw an old YouTube comment from years ago of me agreeing with this. So, let's see how many series there were under Moffat's reign that didn't have the Daleks. So it turns out, during the Moffat era, there were actually more episodes of Doctor Who that had the Daleks in it than when Russell T Davies was the showrunner. But that's not the mistake he makes. That's not why the Daleks don't seem scary anymore. Russell T Davies was able to use them in every series and make them seem terrifying every time, where Steven Moffat failed to do this, and the reason had very little, if not nothing, to do with the amount of episodes they appeared in. The main reason, in my opinion, or perhaps the main difference if you like, is the way in which they were portrayed. Look at Davies' Dalek episodes, and you notice that he always makes them seem incredibly powerful. Contrast this to Moffat's episodes, in which they're always shown to be very weak and insignificant. Something a journalist from IGN, Matt Risley, said about Series 7's Asylum of the Daleks was that it felt less a tale about the Daleks than an adventure that just happened to have them in it. And I personally feel that this can be used to sum up a lot of the Dalek episodes during Moffat's era. Russell T Davies regularly showed off the Daleks' abilities and showed them advancing in new and unexpected ways. You saw how the Daleks improved and grew stronger simply by the new technology and weapons they had, as well as defense mechanisms such as protection against paintballs and stairs. I can't really recall any advancements the Daleks ever made during the Moffat era, other than the creation of the new Dalek paradigm that seemed to harm the Daleks' image if anything, and was tucked quietly away after a couple of years. It was as though after that the Daleks grew weaker and weaker, and have never seemed like a threat since. Plus, the Daleks were almost always shown as being incredibly vast in their numbers under Davies' tenure. Often massive armies of them led by a seemingly omnipotent and always varied ruler. But it didn't even matter when they weren't shown in this way, because even when there was just one, it was still portrayed to be as dangerous as if there were a million of them. Moffat didn't really show the Daleks as being vast in their numbers, and even when he did, it didn't really matter, because they didn't really do anything. The first time Moffat showed Daleks in great numbers was in Asylum of the Daleks, and even then all they did was have a chat with the Doctor, and that's about it. Also, Davies showed the Daleks being very uniformed and well trained and disciplined. It was as though Moffat didn't know what he wanted to do with the Daleks, and he was very inconsistent with them, which is a theme that runs through a lot of aspects of his entire Doctor Who tenure. By the end of it, he doesn't even seem to know what Daleks to use, so he just uses all of them, ironically, apart from the ones he created. It just seemed very messy to me and unnecessary, and I don't even think there was an in-universe reason given for having a mixture of old and new Daleks suddenly appearing together. I could be wrong about that, I can't really remember, but one of the most clever tactics used by Russell T Davies to make the Daleks seem scary was due to the reactions of the other characters to the Daleks. Even the Doctor, a member of a powerful alien race himself, and the one who always saves the day from monsters and villains as if it's nothing, even he is terrified of them. He shows such anger and seriousness towards them that it infects the other characters as well as the viewers to show them how they should be reacting to the Daleks as well. After Moffat took over, the Doctor acts as though the Daleks are nothing, just an ordinary race of aliens that are causing trouble and mischief, and he always just has to stop them. He acts as though they aren't terrifying or a threat, and because of that the viewer doesn't see them as terrifying or a threat. How do they expect to make something seem scary on TV if the characters aren't scared of it themselves? It's hard enough to make viewers feel that emotion already if the characters react in the proper way. The only time during Moffat's era when the Doctor acted scared or at least angry at the Daleks was Victory of the Daleks, but that was written by Mark Gatiss. Finally, and what I think is perhaps one of the most important reasons the Daleks have lost what made them so special in Doctor Who is because Steven Moffat utterly failed at making it seem like a big event when there was a Dalek episode. Even though Russell T Davies used them a lot, it was always a big thing when it happened. He made it into a massive event and never treated them as though they were anything other than the ultimate villain of the show. Moffat made it seem as though they were just an average bad guy, and the result is that now they seem like nothing. He did a lot of regular small appearances by the Daleks in episodes such as the Pandorica Opens and the Wedding of River Song, which made them seem insignificant and not at all dangerous or important. So how can this be fixed? I've yapped on about what Steven Moffat did wrong, so it's about time I said what should be done to restore them to their former glory. Well, these are simply my opinions, of course. I'm not even sure how many times I've said that now, but here's what I do to make the Daleks terrifying again, and appeal to people like me. For starters, I think they just need to stick to one basic Dalek design. No mixing and matching of Daleks throughout the ages like it's a bloody pick and mix. I kind of get why he's sort of doing that to sort of bring about nostalgia, and Moffat is clearly a Doctor Who fanboy and knows how wondrous it is for Doctor Who fans to see the old Daleks back on screen and whatever, but don't have that as the bloody standard. If there's an in-universe reason for having it like that, then fine. Like in Asylum of the Daleks, it kind of made sense. But otherwise, I don't want Dalek stories to look like a packet of Skittles. The Daleks look most threatening, in my opinion, when they're shown as a sleek, well-oiled army of disciplined killing machines. Speaking of which, the design of the Daleks, if targeted at people like me, I think could do with looking darker maybe. To be honest, I kind of think they were fine how they are with the bronze design, but if you wanted to maximise the idea, these are meant to be terrifying war machines. I think they'd have quite a good impact if the Daleks looked absolutely evil. Imagine a Dalek that looks like it could actually hurt you, coming at you. As for the alien inside the shells, the fact that that exists should be taken full advantage of. Now, to be fair, Moffat tried to do this with the Paradigm Daleks by showing their eye being sort of like a real eye. Imagine if this was taken to a fuller extent and the organic side of the Daleks was shown in a similar manner to the xenomorphs of the Alien franchise, sort of perhaps slightly gory and disturbing, and definitely clearly very alien. Absolutely divergent from humanity. The Daleks should seem menacing, like they truly are the most evil and one of the most powerful beings in the universe, to the extent that Russell T Davies portrayed them as being, and even further. I want to believe that a single individual Dalek could wipe out an entire planet. The Daleks should also, in my opinion, live up to their catchphrase. They should shriek this only because it is their true fundamental goal in life, to simply exterminate any and all races that aren't Dalek, and they should be portrayed as doing that. I'm not sure when the last time it's been shown that the Daleks actually kill that many people, but that impression hasn't really been given to me, despite what the Doctor seems to say about them. This also has to mirror the reactions by the characters to the presence of the Daleks. but most importantly by the Doctors. If the other characters don't treat the Daleks as the greatest threat in the universe, and if the guy, or girl now, who's usually calm and deals with situations is scared of them because of the near impossibility of defeating a threat as great as them, then there's no reason for me or any other viewer to feel the same. The Daleks have to be clever and not so easily defeated. Perhaps they should even be portrayed as winning a lot. If they're not smart and come up with ingenious ways to get around problems, then they won't seem like an intelligent alien race. Every problem the Daleks were presented with during the Davies era was overcome in a clever and unexpected way, like when the Dalek elevates up the stairs for the first time, or when they're trying to get through the big door to kill Linda, then she turns around and they're right there at a big window and kill her that way. That reminds me actually, Davies always showed the Daleks as winning. The Doctor always failed and failed to defeat them until a Deus Ex Machina came along and saved the day, whereas Moffat always showed the Daleks in a weak or vulnerable position. That's the difference right there. When the Daleks appeared during the Davies era, you could bet they're going to cause a hell of a lot of damage. In the Moffat era, they simply didn't. It was like they'd just come along to do their mission, which probably didn't involve hurting that many people, if anyone, and then scuttle off so no one can hurt them. Finally, I do agree with Moffat's initial assessment that he utterly failed to carry out, that the Daleks should be sparingly used to avoid seeming easily defeatable. However, as Davies proved, the frequency of their use doesn't matter that much in terms of making them seem weak, but how they're portrayed is what's vitally important, and Davies simply knew how to write and use the Daleks absolutely infinitively better than Moffat. Well, that's my future for Daleks anyway. Let's take a quick look at the actual future. Chris Chibnall, the new guy taken over from Steven Moffat, isn't using the Daleks, at least in his first series of Doctor Who anyway. Maybe he's taken a note of the sparingly used the Daleks idea. Maybe, unlike Moffat, he'll do it properly. Who knows, we'll just have to wait and find out. These are just my thoughts anyway. That's how I think we can once again make the Daleks terrifying.